Hey, how's it going, everyone? Welcome to Mentor Monday. Mentor Monday's weekly microdose of encouragement, inspiration, and miracle grow on your potential as a coach. The way we always love to be Mentor Monday, if you've never joined us before, is to actually connect with you. It's not really my interest at all to just simply be a talking head like some of those people are out there. I mean, it's fine if that works for them. But we're all into connection and into the love over here, And so I would love to connect with you. Just a huge favor, jump in to the comments right now. Thank you for joining us on Facebook or YouTube, wherever you're at. Join us in the comments really quickly. Tell us where you're joining us from. Maybe one thing that you're excited about that you feel life and momentum on. There's Renee who says, "Hi, Paul, your classes are excellent and I look forward to them weekly." Thank you so much, Renee. Tamala is joining us from Dallas. Tiffany joining us from Indianapolis. Welcome, Tiffany. Cookie is joining us from Charlotte, North Carolina. Rebecca joining us from Moore, Oklahoma. Welcome. Jones joining us from Bakersfield. There's Lynn joining us from, almost at it. Lynn joining us from San Diego. Welcome, Lynn. Pamela is joining us from Nebraska. Very cool. Been there before. Who else is in here? Tammy from Tuscaloosa. Harvey's joining us from Florida. So excited. Just got my eBiz card. Awesome. That's cool. William's joining us from Dallas. Dallas is being represented in the house. So good. Bart says, confident in all that's changing for the good. I love that. Let's see. Who else do I need to say hello to? Bill's joining us from Burleson, Texas. Excited to hear what nuggets you will share with us this evening. Thank you. Sylvia joining us from Nigeria. Tara is joining us from Las Vegas. Awesome. Anybody else like to say hello as you're making it into the room? Montina from Norwalk, Ohio. Welcome. Anybody else like to say hello if you're just joining us? Before I jump in, I always love to say hello. And of course, I connect with people as we're going along as well, because we're all about interactivity and engagement with you. But if you're making it into the room and we haven't said hello to us yet, or you haven't said hello to us, make sure that you throw it in the comments. Also, just a huge favor, if you find these, especially today, is actually beneficial for you, just a huge favor, a couple of things. One is you can go back to, we actually have several years worth of Mentor Mondays that are on Facebook and YouTube that you can go back and look at. And also, it would do us a huge favor if you like this post, that you shared it or you commented. All of those things tell Facebook and YouTube that we're doing a good job and that we're doing something of value and worth to you. And so that'd be a huge favor if you take one second right now, click that like button or love button or whatever. That would be really great. Sylvia joining us from, or just saying hello. Romeo, who's joining us from Maine. Welcome, Romeo. Awesome. Well, a couple of weeks ago, we started this series called Back to Basics. And really what we've been talking about in this series are some of the common mistakes, some of the common trouble spots that coaches have when they're first starting. Matter of fact, not just new coaches, sometimes veteran coaches, people who have been around a little while, but have seen that maybe they haven't reached the success level that they should have. What we've been really doing over this series is going back to basics, some of the trouble spots on the proficiency end. So we've been talking about some of those skill kinds of things, but we've also been talking about the business side of coaching as well, which is extraordinarily important and something that we have just as much of a passion about the business side of coaching at Life Coach Training Institute as we do the skill side. We want you to have coaching proficiency, but we want you to have the business skills, the knowledge, the know-how. We want your practice to be thriving. Now, here's the interesting thing about what I'm seeing with what we're talking about this week, which is really the business mindset mistakes that new coaches make. Because what I have found over all of these years and working with coaches, because the vast majority of my conversations are with coaches every week. I mean, we literally serve hundreds of coaches every week in some form or fashion, and many of those that we interact with on either a level of their actual training or their business development, or just some of those questions that we're fielding. And so really what I've come to understand over all of these years of seeing, hey, I saw this coach be extraordinarily successful, and I see this coach who is struggling, or this coach who just had a complete failure to launch. Like, what was really the difference? If I was able to chart the success between one coach and another, if I had them on like on an even platform looking at them, and I was able to say, hey, what's really the difference between a coach that really thrives and succeeds and one who's really struggling? What does that actually look like? Well, some of that might actually be surprising for you, because coaches who struggle or just quit, what I've really found is that they're generally equal in their coaching and business skills. And maybe if they're not even equal on what their current skills are, what I would say is that their aptitudes are really equal. Like, over all of these years, when someone comes in and they're like, hey, you know what? I've got this passion to become a coach. I want to start this thing. I have this burning in my heart. I believe it's the calling in my life. I hear that commonly. Like, that's pretty much what I hear from every coach as they come along. And so I hear those things, but I notice that it's not really a skill. It's not a current skill, and it's not really an aptitude. What I see in, for the most part, is that everybody's pretty much equal there. Like, it's not really what that is. Are some people generally a little bit more suited? Do some people seem to excel a little bit skill wise or whatever? Do some people have a little bit more business acumen than someone else? Yeah, but that's not really what the difference is from the people who are successful and the people who are really struggling. So I see that that's pretty much equal. And what I also see as equal is on this passion end, because one thing that I find is that all coaches who are aspiring coaches, people that we talk to all the time, are some of the most passionate human beings that you'll ever meet on the planet. They are on fire. And usually what I always tell our coaches is that when I ask this question, what prompted you? What was the thing that maybe happened in your life, or kind of like it was that star in the sky or whatever that's telling you, hey, you know what, you're supposed to be a coach? And really, everybody really walks you through, their journey and that defining moment when coaching really found them. And so you see that passion, because it's not just something like, well, I just want to change my career. It's not like some of the jobs that we grew up just kind of having, because we're trying to pay the bills or whatever. People who get into coaching aren't just simply trying to pay the bills. Something else much more meaningful, much deeper, much more connected to purpose and all of those things. And so what I find is that it's pretty equal. The coaches who are extraordinarily successful and the coaches who are struggling or who really never start are usually always equal on this passion thing. I never see a weakness when it comes to passion. What I do see between the coaches who struggle and the coaches who really succeed is that the coaches who struggle don't make a plan. They never made a plan for cultivating the mindsets that successful coaches have. Now, I'm not saying that day one, when you start your coaching practice or when you start out as a coach, that you have all of those things together. What I'm saying is that you actually have a plan to cultivate. What's a whole plan for cultivation? Creating a culture for something. What we're really talking about is that someone who is into farming or growing any kind of thing knows that you've got to plant a seed. And the people who plant a seed don't expect that the next day that everything is going to have grown up and have completely developed. We understand that there's some work involved in this. And so what I find is that most coaches really, and I say most coaches don't really, and I'm not saying that most coaches are not successful. I'm saying that most coaches don't have a plan for cultivating the mindsets that can equal extraordinary success for them, for their clients, ultimately for their practice. Because what I see it as is that we're talking about an unnecessary lid, a ceiling they put on themselves that either keep them from ever starting, which happens sometimes, that coaches just never start. Like they start with all this passion and they're on fire, but then all of a sudden it's like, okay, well, what put the fire out? They never actually started. Or maybe they started and they had all of this frenzy, but they weren't able to maintain it. Or they did start, but they found that there was a lid, there was some kind of a ceiling. And what I'm saying is that the ceiling really isn't a skill problem and it's not really a passion problem, but it is up here. It's a mindset issue. And we really want to address that. So, what is a mindset? Because sometimes people throw this word around. What I want to try to give you is a little bit of a handle on what a mindset is so that we can actually go after what those things are. And really, what a dictionary definition of a mindset is just a set of attitudes or fixed ideas. Really, what I would say about it is it's kind of the way, what I would say when it comes to business, is it's a combination of a couple of things. Is that you have an attitude, you have what we really would say is a set of beliefs. It's shapes. It's not just one belief, it's a set of beliefs. And it's the way that you see business. It's the way that you see people. It's the way that you see yourself. It's the way that you see success. It's the way that you see money. It's the way that you see the world. It's the way that you see that things flow towards you or do not flow towards you. All of these kinds of things. What we're really talking about is a mindset. It's a combination of all of these things, all of these attitudes towards the world, towards your situation, towards your skill set, your development, all kinds of different things. And really what we're talking about is that mindset influences how you think, how you feel, how you behave in any given situation. So those things are going to happen in the way that you do business. It's going to show up in the way that you are running your business, how you're conducting yourself on a daily basis. If you're putting the work in, if you're not, if you're procrastinating, there's probably a mindset for that. If you are not putting yourself out there, guarantee you there's a mindset behind that. If you're not doing what you need to be doing, if you're putting off stuff, if you start something, leave it, come back to it, because that's something that I see with coaches sometimes. Is they'll start something and then all of a sudden life seems to take over for a couple of months and then they'll come back to it. They're like, oh, don't give up on me. I'm going to do this thing or whatever. And so what we're really talking about is all of that whole perception, that attitude. It's a collection of all of these things. And really that mindset determines whether or not someone's going to actually be successful or not. Rather than doing what I think a lot of people do, because I'm going to kind of like, I'm going to really wing it today. I'm always a little bit extemporaneous when it comes to what I'm thinking about and what I'm talking about or whatever. What I want to do, instead of having a bunch of bullet points with factoids and things that you may remember or whatever, like a lot of times what we try to do is that we try to say encouraging things or to give you some kind of a handle in your life. But what I want to do today is instead of saying, well, this mindset will help you and this mindset will help you. Like that's usually what people will do when they're talking about business, entrepreneurship or becoming a coach. They'll say this one, this one, this one, this one. What I'd rather do than just giving you like 5 definitions of a mindset that you should have to be successful. What I'd rather do is I want to give you 5 questions. And you know what the 5 questions are going to do? If you'll take these 5 questions, and I don't expect that you're going to have the answer to them immediately, what I would say is if you'll take these 5 questions and you will address them in your own life, then you'll actually begin to cultivate the kinds of mindsets that you actually need to be successful. Because the 5 questions I'm going to give you today, and there could be 50 questions for that matter, I'm just boiling them down to 5 that I believe that can really get you started. Because I think if a coach starts with these 5 questions in the front end, and they're answered. Matter of fact, if I sat down with a coach right now, today, with any of you, and I ask these 5 questions are going to be a real predictor of your success in the future. How you answer them is going to be a predictor of it. Now, I'm not saying that there is a right or a wrong answer on all of these things. What I am saying is that it's going to be a predictor. Why? Because it's going to reveal your attitude. It's going to reveal your mindset about certain things, and it's going to determine if there is a lid on you. It's going to determine how far you're going to go. Matter of fact, it'll probably determine whether you even start or not. Because I'll be frank with you, Coaches who are in such a process that they're a year into their coaching practice and they haven't pulled the trigger on anything, that's making me think that there's something really big, much bigger that's actually driving things that they're not addressing. And it doesn't matter how many Mentor Mondays that you go to, and it doesn't matter how many coaching books you read or YouTube stuff that you watch or any of those other kinds of things. It's not going to help you until you actually do the work to address these mindsets, to know what they are and to actually go after them. And part of that takes work, because we all know that working with a coach requires work on that person's part to actually want to think differently and to proceed differently in their life. So I'm going to whiteboard some of this stuff, but I'm going to give you some of these questions. Okay. Here's question 1. 5 questions you must ask. Number 1 is this: is what's actually keeping you from maximizing your potential? I'll give you a second to think about that. What's keeping you from actually maximizing your potential? Because there's something right now that's keeping you from maximizing your potential. How do I know that? Well, here's how I know that, is that we haven't met a human being right now who has fully met their potential. I know that I'm not speaking to anyone right now who has completely maximized their potential. I know that none of you have come into your fullness. Matter of fact, what you could almost say, because some people, you ever hear somebody talk about, well, you got to have an abundance mindset versus a lack mindset. And there's something to that, but we have to understand how we're actually seeing things from a scarcity standpoint with regard to our abilities, our skills, our resources, all of that other stuff. See, because the truth is that every one of us right now, as we're talking here, is that if I wanted to have a mindset about this, it would probably be something like, I am infinite. Now, I know when I say I am infinite, I am not saying that I am God, and I am not even saying that I am a God. None of us are, really. But for all intents and purposes, we are infinite. You know why? Because we don't know how far our potential can go. I don't know how far you can go. I don't know how far beyond what you've achieved in your life, how far you could actually go. If you actually chose to come into fullness of your actual potential in your life, how far could you go? What are you actually capable of doing? And that means that there's extraordinary things that you could be learning. You know, you're learning your knowledge, your capacity for skills. What could you do? Some of you have particular skills in your life right now that you're already really good at, but you know that skill can always improve, that there's no cap on the skills that you have. Some of you are like, well, if I was a better coach, then I could be a more successful coach. And if I had better skills or I had more learning, then I could be a better coach or I could be a more successful business person. You know, there's nothing that's keeping you from actually developing that. I don't know if you know about this, but there are certain people who are born with talents. We know that everybody's kind of born with a certain amount of potential, a certain amount of aptitude towards things, a bent towards certain things. I totally believe that. But at the exact same time is that there has not been one person who has completely maximized on any of those skills or abilities. And any of you who, if you think that you have a lower level skill or ability or knowledge in coaching or knowledge in business or skill in business, then why aren't you developing it? A child is not born with the knowledge of how to do business. You understand that? Like anybody who's good at math, do you know that they didn't come out of the womb being able to say A plus B equals C or any of that stuff? That's not where they were. You know what ended up having to happen? It meant that development meant that the talent is there, but unless that person creates a culture of development, unless they actually work towards those things, unless they start leaning towards things, and unless they start leaning towards the talent and the inborn abilities that they have, whatever those talents look like. Some of those, these things are developed. They're not something that just falls in your lap one day, and some people have it and some people don't. Listen, whatever you have probably has not been maximized yet. I would argue with pretty much any of you with regard to coaching and the skills and business acumen and all of those other things. Like, it's fine that you have those things. I'm sure that you haven't fully developed them. Oh, I'm just not that good at selling things. Well, how do you know? Because you haven't, have you worked on that in your life? See, that's the reality kinds of questions that we have to ask. Because if I whiteboarded this thing for you, what we're really talking about here, when I ask you that question, because it's an important question for you to ask yourself, what we're really talking about is that right now you have every bit. Let's talk honestly here. You have every bit of talent. You have every bit of genius. You have every ounce right now of ability that you need to achieve your purpose, whatever that is on the planet. If we're all in agreement that you have a purpose over your life, everything that you need right now, you've got it. We check off all of the boxes on every one of these things that you need. You already have it. But at what point have you actually developed it? Because here's the way that we actually live in our life. Like, if we started out as babies here, and we're starting out at zero essentially, and maximizing ourselves, if we were able to get to 100, and that is actually connected to our purpose in some kind of a way, what it really means is that at some point in our life, see what these numbers are? I'll help you understand what these numbers are. At some point in our life, we check out when it comes to maximizing our potential. That's what I'm really talking about. At some point in your process, any of you who are hearing me right now, if you have not fulfilled your potential, if you have not fulfilled your purpose on this planet, if you're not already killing it as a coach, you believe that that's your destiny, that's what you're made for, you believe that's your calling, that's what you're passionate about, and you're not doing it yet, and you're not moving towards that in an expansive kind of level, you know what it tells me? It tells me that maybe you've checked out in your process. Maybe you've checked out with regard to your potential. Because here's the thing, is that you can look back in your life and you can probably find other things that you started at a certain point and you checked out with regard to developing your potential. We can look at that in anything. Some of you play instruments. I started playing an instrument when I was a kid. And when I checked out when it came to reading music, when it came to disciplining a left hand to play other keys and advanced chords and everything, when it came to practicing 8 hours a day to be able to do that. You know why? You know why we checked out? There's a big reason why. It's this word right here. It's pain. And it's how we've equated anything that we've equated. And again, this is the mental attitude. This is the mindset. Anything that we equate with pain, this hurts, that there's often an unwillingness to do the things that it takes to get done. This is an important question for you to ask. Why are you not maximizing your potential? Why haven't you done that at this point? What are you unwilling? Because of the way that you are perceiving pain right now in your life. And I'm not talking about brokenness. I'm not talking about hurts. I'm talking about how you perceive pain with regard to becoming a coach, to getting the skills and to mastery, to getting the business side to mastery, to be a successful, because the business side and you thriving as a business person is important, because maximizing your potential is about maximizing your ability to have a greater impact on the planet. Because as we understand this, if you look at this little picture here, see, my purpose is really here. Like, this is what your destiny is. But some of you right now are selling out at about right here. So you know what that is? It's actually an unfulfilled purpose. That means that we get parts of our purpose. You'll get to the degree, understand this, you'll get the degree of your purpose to the ability. And I'm not saying ability from this. You get the amount of your purpose, you get the percentage, you get the degree of your purpose to the willingness that you are to steward whatever it takes to get to that place. And if we're looking at everything, associating everything with pain, with regard to what it takes to develop ourselves, to grow, or man, that's going to mean that I have to get up at 4 o'clock in the morning because I'm going to have to get up and be with the kids. Oh, that means that I might have to work on a Saturday morning to get away from everybody to be able to learn what I need to learn. It might mean that I've got to find somebody who knows things that I don't know, who can help me chart my path forward. This morning I dropped in a coffee shop, and there was a guy that I recognize over there, and I recognize him because his kid and my kid are friends. One of my children are friends, and he's a well-known leader in our area and everything else. And he apparently, I ran in the coffee place. He was getting his car detailed or whatever, and I was in there, and I kind of like waved at him. And what ended up happening is that when I walked over there, it was just one of those conversations that start happening. And he knows that I'm a coach. And so he's talking about, because he's thinking about leadership and he's thinking about these people. And he was like, you know what? He says, that accountability that you coaches do, he says, it does wonders in people. Everybody needs accountability so that they can get here, is what he said. I said, well, kind of. I said, accountability is a really good thing from the standpoint of people charting out, like they're trying to understand what would be a plan. What's my development plan? What helps me stay on point and stay focused? I said, but the reality is that the people who do this thing right here, who fulfill their purpose, who come into it, it's really not just simply an accountability issue that's going on in their life when it comes to working with someone who's holding them accountable for things in their life. I said, because it's never a how-to issue. It's never a resource issue. It's not a knowledge issue. It's not a time issue. It's not a money issue. It's none of those things. You know what it really is? It's when somebody determines I'm committed enough to actually maximize my potential. It doesn't matter where they start. It doesn't matter what their skill set is or anything else, because what you can find out in the world is that people with a fraction of the skill, fraction of the knowledge, a fraction of the talent are the people who are kind of ruling the world right now. Like if you look at the world right now and you see leaders or you see people in business and you're like, I'm smarter than that guy. Or you watch, our president and you think that you're smarter than they are. Or you're or some kind of a political leader or a business leader or whatever, and you think that you're smarter than they are. It's possible that you are. But it's also possible that they maximized their potential and worked with what they had much more than what we are right now. I mean, we have to ask those questions. If we're not having the influential impact at this level and someone with less talent, less ability, less skill, all of these other kinds of things has it, then there's something that maybe they were willing to do that we've been unwilling to do so far. And so this is the important thing. This is the question where you've got to ask. And this is an important answer for you, because what's keeping you from maximizing your potential? If you can actually name what that thing is, it's keeping you from maximizing it. It's probably associated with pain. It's going to be a great indicator on how far you're going to go, because this can keep you from a lot of blood, sweat, and tears and pain with regard to this, if you can actually acknowledge and name what this thing is. Because if you will deal with it now, as you're aspiring as a coach, then you can actually be really successful and not have a lid on your potential and not be putting a artificial ceiling on where you could actually go as a coach. Are you willing to do what it takes to actually maximize your potential? Because if you are not, then what we're talking about is that your purpose is only going to be as developed as how far you're willing to go. Like, you remember that old Meatloaf song? I would do anything for love, but I won't do that. You know that song? Here's the Meatloaf. Yes, he's smiling down on us from somewhere. But anyway, the thing is that that's what the song was about. I will only go this far. So there are some people who are willing to go this far. They are willing to do that. Are you willing to do that? Is your purpose matter enough? Is it painful enough to know that you won't live into your purpose? See, there's some people who are going to like, you know what? I'm not willing to do that. I'm willing to tolerate where I'm at instead of doing that. All right, let me give you the question 2. You're going to watch them kind of build on one another. Question number 2. What 3 feelings do you avoid the most? Why is this important? Because everything that we seek in our life is a feeling. Sometimes people are like, there's a goal in my life that I want. I want a purpose in my life. I want this. No, you don't really want a thing. You want what it makes you feel like, right? Why do you want the kind of car that you like out there? Why do you want the brand that you buy? Why do you want the clothes that you wear? Why do you want the kinds of food that you eat? The city that you live in, the neighborhood, like any of those things. Why do you want to have children? Why do you, any of those things, if you actually ask yourself those things, they're not what we think. It's not the goal. It's what it makes you feel like, right? It's what is, I got a college degree. What was that really about? Well, it's about a feeling of accomplishment. It's a feeling of why do I want to become a business person? Why would I even want to be an entrepreneur? It's because of what's associated with the feeling in that. What does it mean? Does it mean prestige? Does it mean freedom? Because I don't want money because I want money, but there's something that's associated with money. Is it security? Is it safety? Is it freedom? Is it generosity? Could be generosity. Could be legacy. Could be making other people's dreams come true. It could be a lot of those things, but it feels like something, right? When somebody else's dream comes true around you and you are influential in that, there's a feeling that's associated with it. There's a feeling when you're with a client and you see them get breakthrough. All of that has a feeling about it. And see, some of these things we pursue because we want to feel a certain way, right? We pursue a spouse. We pursue a boyfriend or girlfriend. We pursue our children. We pursue a lot of different things. Why? Because of what it makes us feel like or what we think that it's going to make us feel like. That's what we're looking for. We're looking for a state. There's a feeling with it. What we have to understand, though, is that there's feelings that we avoid in our life as well. Now, why do I say what feelings do you avoid? Because, again, pain is more motivating than pleasure ever will be. See, because there's some of you that the feeling that you avoid in your life is failure. The feeling that you avoid in your life, more than anything, is that feeling that makes you feel unworthy or rejected in some kind of way. And see, if you have a feeling in your life that you're afraid of being rejected, you know what? You know what that means from a business standpoint, from a coaching standpoint? You're probably going to struggle as a coach. If you're avoiding the feeling of rejection, the thing that you've got to chart out for your business is all about meeting new people. And it's about offering them something that can help them get to the next level in their life. That can help them achieve something they've not been able to achieve in their life, to help them materialize the dreams that have actually been in their heart. And you know what comes with that? It comes with it is that somebody doesn't want the sandwich that you're making. And some of you take that extraordinarily personal. You think it is a personal rejection. And you know what? Even the fear, the thought of what that could potentially feel like makes a person get shut down. And so there's a lot of coaches who never even start because they can't get out of their mind how much they spend all of their time, really. And if you actually looked at people in their life, they will avoid feeling a certain way at all costs. Some people avoid feeling bored. Some people avoid feeling lonely, all these kinds of things. People will go to great extremes feeling like this. They do it all the time. Introverts do it and extroverts do it. People who are poor and struggling, people who are financially secure, everybody's got something that they're trying to avoid in their life. And if you have these things, particularly rejection, I would say from a business standpoint, however you're naming what that feeling is, I don't like putting myself out there. I don't want people to look at me a certain way. I don't want people to think that I'm pushy. Like there's all of this stuff that we kind of create, and whatever feelings that we are avoiding, you know what? It's going to drive what your behavior is. It's going to drive your choices, and you're not going to put yourself out there like you need to put yourself out there. You're not going to have the conversations that you need to have. You're not going to put your face out there or whatever. So this is a really big one. What 3 feelings do you avoid the most? See, what you can do is that when you understand what's keeping you from maximizing your potential, what will you not do? What are you unwilling to do? When you get to this point of knowing, here's the 3 feelings that I'm always trying to avoid, and I realize how much it's determining my future. See, what we understand is that your life becomes very predictable because your whole life you're trying to avoid feeling a certain way. When you can start looking at these things in your life and understand that you live a very predictable path, it's probably why in certain areas of your life that you've quit or stopped, because this has shown up in other areas of your life. Once you actually notice these things, and now we understand what kind of a mindset that we've got to create so that we're not crippled by these things anymore. Here's question 3. Question 3 is, how much value do you bring to the world? This is a big one because coaches always ask me all the time, Paul, what's the going rate for a first-year coach who's gotten certified? And what they're looking for is they're looking for some kind of affirmation or validation of something that is a going rate, in part because they don't want to be rejected, right? It's usually about that. They're trying to get me to tell them what their value is. What is your worth right now that you have a piece of paper in your hand, compared to where you were 2 months ago when you did not have that piece of paper in your hand? That's what people are actually asking. Like, we get literal about it. What is your worth and your value now that you have this piece of paper and you've learned these skills compared to what it was 2 months ago? And here's the thing. Hand people a piece of paper. Does this necessarily make you feel more valuable? It doesn't. You know why? Because there's something informing that. And it's not this. It's not extrinsic things. It's not things that you can just add credentials and titles and all that stuff. It's not going to deal with it. So you know what you end up doing is that you tell people, well, you know that I don't tell our coaches to do this, but I know that the going rate is somewhere between 118 to 128 per hour. Now, are those coaches, do they have the confidence to go out and say, this is what I'm going to charge? If they've never charged that before in their life, they don't. And so you know what they'll end up doing? They'll end up lowballing everybody. They'll end up, well, you know what? I just don't feel like I have the confidence yet. I don't feel like I've done enough. I don't have the merits yet. So maybe I'll charge like 50 an hour, and they'll put that out there. And then you know what they'll end up doing? They'll end up doing a bunch of free coaching, and they'll charge maybe 20, whatever you want to give me, $20, $25 an hour or whatever. What is that really telling you? Is that it's really not about the money. It's about understanding what your own personal value and worth is. Now, part of this is not any of our fault at all. Part of it is the way that we pay people these days. And what we've paid people for many, many years, for that matter. I mean, nobody's been really paid for their personal value and worth that they bring to the table. Like, how many of us have had someone negotiate our salary for us and they got paid a fee for doing that? Like, most of us have never had that. Now there's agents, and they're able to do a lot of different measures when you're playing a professional sport, like not just numbers on a paper of like stats. What they're also able to say is, here's how many fans were coming before I got there, and now here's how many fans were coming after I left here, and who's buying these shoes that now is that I'm doing a poster for, or something like that. Like, they're able to measure some of those things out, and there's a negotiation, and granted, the person who's doing the negotiation. But the interesting thing is that the player themselves is not doing the negotiation for themselves, because left to themselves, they don't understand. They probably don't have a clue of what their real value and worth is in most cases. So those people are trying to do the scientific data and negotiate things and everything else. There's a very few people in the world that really live in that realm. What does that mean for us? How have we been trained? We've been trained to trade time for money. We've been trained that our time doesn't really matter that much, and it's not worth a whole lot. We're trained when we go to school to put in an 8-hour day. And that 8-hour day in the school is going to consist of 2 15-minute breaks and a lunch period. What are they setting you up for? They're setting you up for working 40 hours a week for the rest of your life and trading the true scarce thing that you have in your life, which is actually your time. And I'm going to exchange time for money. And you know where your value and worth came from? It didn't really come from what you got paid. It got from the position, because anyone they hire for that position gets paid the exact wage that they think these duties equal this. And anything that you brought to the table that was of value and worth that was not on that job description It didn't matter. You didn't get paid for that. There was nobody who came to you and said, hey, you know what? I didn't realize you were so good. And you bring all these things to the table that was not part of the job description. We're just wondering, you've been here for about a month. We're ashamed of what we're paying you. Can we bump up your salary by 25%? Like, none of us have actually heard that. Like, that'd be like an insane thought, because we know that the day we leave that job, that whatever the going rate for that position is on that day that we left, somebody's going to come in at the exact rate that we worked hard for years. They're going to come in and they're going to get what we had. That's what we got for all of our troubles. That's the way that the world works. What you have to have is a mindset in this thing of your own personal value and worth. And that we're not trading time for money. And it's a completely different concept for people, because they're so used to devaluing their time. People show up late. You go to the doctor's office and they show up late to the appointment, but they expect you to be there early. You show up to any kind of an appointment and people are late. Your friends no show. Your friends are late. Your family is late, or they no show. Or what else happens? You had that job where you showed up on time and they didn't let you in the place. You ever had a job interview and then they no showed on you, or they showed up 10 or 15 minutes late, or they changed your schedule last minute with the job that you were in? At any point in your life, you were trained in this kind of way. You know, my daughter, she's almost 18 now. A couple of years ago, she was looking at work. And one of the things that I've tried to instill in her is this understanding of, do you know how much value you have for yourself? And we've tried a lot of different things just as parents to really instill some of those things. But at the end of the day, a kid's going to make up their own mind, because your value is to the degree that there's a powerful voice over your life that you agree with on the value. And you get to determine what that value is. You get to determine what that voice is, actually. So whatever voice that you're hearing in the back of your mind is what's actually determining your value in your life. I don't know if you ever thought about this. So if it's a weak voice, if it's somebody who's mistreated you, damaged you, took advantage of you, if it was a voice that, unless you performed at a certain level and they only loved you and affirmed you when you performed at that level, but they changed their mind about you when you didn't perform at that level, it wasn't really a good voice. But we allow those voices to keep speaking our value and worth for the rest of our life. And so some people end up being very performance oriented in a negative kind of way. I'm all about performance, doing great. But some of us have major wounds with relatives, with family members, with spouses, with ex-boyfriends, with ex-girlfriends, with friends, from bullies at school, all kinds of stuff. And their voices are still talking about our value and worth. And here's the thing, is that we have to, at some point, find a voice that speaks extraordinary value and worth. And the voice that you agree with is the one that actually is the one who speaks the most. Like, you can have a great parent who tells you how much value and worth that you have, but if you listen to another voice, that's the one that determines your value and worth. So we've tried this with our kids, but at a certain point, they get to choose the voice. And it may be the voice of us, it might be the voice of someone else. But I remember this franchise was interested in hiring her. And so they set up an interview. And when they set up the interview, they buzzed her last, like 10 minutes into the interview, 10 minutes past the interview time. She was there, and they buzzed her and they were like, hey, we're going to have to reschedule. Some things came up or whatever, but we'll get back with you. And she's like, okay. Second day, it was like last minute, and something happened. And I think that they were like 10 or 15 minutes late. And she actually did the interview with them, but they were 10 or 15 minutes late, and she did the interview with them. And so she's waiting on a call back from them. And, or it was supposed to have a call back within like the next 24 hours. And she said, you know what? I really hated that they not only no-showed on the first one, because I would never be able to no-show. You know why? Because their time is valuable, but mine is not. She understood this as a teenager. Their time is so valuable that they can no-show on me. But if I came to their workplace and I no-showed, then I would be showing that I have no value for the place, and I would probably be written up or something like that. They are showing me what they value in me when they show up to the interview 15 minutes late, because most teenagers her age would have been like, oh, I'm more than happy that I'm just glad that I'm getting an interview. And yes, it's fine. You know, you took 15 minutes of my time. It was not okay with her. And you know what she did? She buzzed them and she was like, hey, listen, I want to take myself out of the hiring process. Thanks for the interview. But I really value my time. And it makes me think that you don't value your employees because you no-showed and you were late. And not only that, that it's probably informing me of what your business practices are going to be in the future. So I'm going to encourage you as a business owner to keep your promises and to stick to the times that you actually tell people, because it's communicating something. And I'm not sure that if I ever worked for you that this would not be a consistent kind of theme. I mean, she was like, "You're my teenage daughter." Yeah, that was awesome. But see, this is what we have to go for. You know why? Because most of us don't know what we're worth. Because when you get out there in the world and you don't think that you have anything to contribute to people, if you don't, and this is more than just money, if you don't believe that your skills are valuable, who you are as a human being is valuable, you know what? You're going to have people who no show, cancel. There's going to be people who will no show on your complimentary coaching session. How are you going to respond to that? How are you going to show up in a room? People actually know whether someone values themselves or not. The rate that you put on yourself is not just an arbitrary number. It's not okay just to throw something out there and tell people to pay you whatever they want. You need to know what your value and worth is that you bring to the world. This is a mindset. It's bigger than this. And so this is something that you've got to say, what is my value? Do I know that I'm bringing value to the world? Because if you don't, it's going to be really hard to sell something you don't think that people need. Here's the fourth question. Fourth question is, how clear is the vision for your future? Why is that? Because sometimes things are going to get difficult. Sometimes there's going to be some hardships along the way. Sometimes things are going to go a little bit crazy. What's the thing that actually draws us and keeps the due north for us in our life? So people who actually know, and I say how clear the future is. Like, it needs to be tangible. Like, I'll have coaches who they don't have a deadline on anything for their future. They don't know when they want to start. They don't have any milestones along the way. They have no idea. That's why when somebody says, "Well, how much should I charge?" I don't know what my fee should be. I was like, that's not the question you start with. You start with, what's the goal for your future? Like, what do you want your future to look like? That looks like something. It looks like a certain amount of money, probably. It looks like a certain amount of working hours. It looks like, well, how will you be working in the future? Are you working remotely? Are you meeting with people? Like, how does this actually look? Because there's a picture of what that looks like, and a really big picture. Like, we want a broad stroke, not just for your business. How does that look for life with your kids? Does this look like you getting to show up at your kid's school and have lunch with them? Like, is this what your future, like, we need to know tangibly, what does this future look like? Because on the days when it's hard, what we have to understand is that sometimes the day is going to be hard. Like, when we go back to this question of what's keeping you from maximizing your potential, you know what keeps you in the seat when you're having to deal with pain of developing yourself, of refining skills, of learning new kinds of things? You know what actually does that for you? What keeps you in the driver's seat is the joy that's in front of you, that pain has a purpose. Your vision for the future is the purpose that keeps you in the driver's seat. It makes me think about my kids long term. It helps me to understand, like, have you ever done something that was physically exhausting? I've done this. Physically exhausting. You like climbed a hill and it was like you're halfway through and you're like, this is the dumbest idea ever. Like, why did I do this to myself? And then you get up there and you're like, I'm never doing this to myself again. That's okay. When you know that, that's not your compelling future. But there's some psychos out there who got up to the top and they felt like you and they were like, yes, this is what I wanted in my life, and I can't wait to do this. I'm going to push myself even harder next time. You know, we did halfway. We're going to go like 8 miles next time. And you're like, you are completely crazy. Don't call me when you do that. I'm not showing up. It's fine. You need to know what that is. But we have to know what that vision is, because we give pain a purpose. Helps us understand that I can put off and I can understand my pain in the mindset of the joy is in front of me. What does this mean for my kids? What does this mean for my marriage? What does this mean for my house, my legacy, my city, this group of people? That's what we always have to keep, that particular mindset in mind. Do you have that? You know what? If you don't have a clear vision, you need to write it down. You need to make it clear. You need to know what it looks like. Even if you don't have the skills, the ability, you think that you're lacking skills in the ability and the training and all this other stuff, it doesn't matter. What does that person look like How does that person think? How does that person in the future think? How does that person relate to the world? How does that you in the future show up in a room? How do you show up to a meeting? How do you show up with a client? How do you show up as a business person? How do you show up as a parent? How do you show up as a son or a daughter? All of these kinds of things. See, I can get as much detail about that vision for the future as I want, but I have to understand something is that it takes a different mindset and it takes different actions to become that person. So if I can understand that on the front end, then that compels me forward and I can endure when things get really tough. Listen, one of the things that I'm doing right now, I said a while ago, I tried music before at one point in my life and it got hard and I quit. My daughter has this thing. So my oldest, and every now and then I'll tell her, I'm like, you know what? I'm so sorry that I was lazy in this area of my life because I would have something to contribute to you in your life right now, or maybe play music with you or do a duo. Like I can sing a little bit, but in my family line are all of these people who play music, sing, all this, play multiple instruments. And she's one of those people. She picks up a guitar and she's like a savant. She's like, and her fingers go in place and she understands what every note sounds like and everything else. Well, couple of weeks ago, I decided I'm going to learn an instrument. And you know what instrument I'm going to learn? I'm going to learn the hammer dulcimer. Why? Heck, I don't know. It might not have been one of the better decisions that I've made probably in the last 5 years. From the standpoint of, like, if I'd chosen a guitar, I can learn 3 chords and I can play a lot of songs. Definitely any Guns N' Roses tunes. That would be really easy. I could probably learn how to play a drum or a con, like some kind of a simple drum or whatever. Like there's a lot of those things that I could probably learn really easily. I didn't realize how hard this instrument was. I ordered this antique version of this instrument because it looked cool because it was made in 1974, gets shipped to me and it's all out of tune and it's an antique for a reason. It's not in perfect condition. So I bring it to a guy locally who does tuning. And when he sees the thing, he's like, I'm not doing that work. And I was like, are you kidding me? You're really telling me you're not going to do this? He was like, nope. He's like, you know, the advice that I could give you, go learn the guitar. And if you don't know how to play a guitar already, you're never going to be able to play this. And this is probably going to take you 10 hours to be able to even tune to get it even sounding right. He said, and you can do that. He said, but you know what my advice is? Pack it up, ship it back to who you bought it from. And I was like, really? And he was like, or sell it. He said, those are your options. And he's a very well-known, like his store is a landmark store for guitars and instruments and everything else. And so I went home and I'm like, dude, because he told me this is like the hardest instrument you'll ever learn to play. And I'm like, what a dummy. Like knowing how I see myself and skills and all this. And what I ended up doing is I sent it back. But you know what I did is I bought a brand new one so I didn't have to go through all the pains of trying to fix something that was broken. And you know what I'm having to learn to do now? Learning how to hit a thing with sticks and to do it with a steady hand and not try to pound it because it's strings and they basically give you hammers and you play the strings. And I don't have great control of my left hand. And I'm dealing with the fact that I have deteriorated skills with my hands because I'm almost 48 years old trying to start to learn something. Because you know what? It's work. And it's going to take me hours to get to any semblance of control so that I could play something more than Mary Had a Little Lamb. But I'm in it. And this is the way that it works. I'm not going to say that some of this stuff feels like your dominant hand. Some of the things that we have to do not feel like our dominant hand. Are you willing? Are you willing to maximize your potential? Are you willing to pay the price? Are you willing to see the joy in front of you? And that's the joy in front of me. It's like I'm actually leveraging something that has possibly been in me. And you know what? I can't even be trained by anybody. You know why? I can't get lessons because nobody plays this instrument. Like nobody plays it. Find YouTubers who have horrible how-tos on this thing and they're playing so fast. I'm like, I can't see what they're doing. So, but I'm having to put in the work. This is the way it goes. What is that? What's the vision of that future? We need to make it tangible. Here's the last question. Last question is this. At what point will you relinquish your dream? At what point will you relinquish your dream? You guys have this dream in mind right now for your life, what you're really wanting, what you're desiring, that picture of the future, that vision. You know what I can also tell you is that there's probably something right now. There's probably something right now that it says, at what point If I went back to this picture, you can kind of use this picture. If 0 to 100 is achieving your dream, at what point, what is the thing? At what point, what would it take to make you stop right here? What's that stop sign? Where's that barrier at that it's like, no, we're not going past this? See, it's really important for you to understand and have a handle on it and be honest with yourself and everything else, because you need to count the cost. The cost is, what's that barrier? What's that pain point? What is the ultimate thing that stops you? I'm not saying things that go against your values, because I'm not talking about like what's right or wrong or morals or anything else, or this is taking too much time away from my family or whatever. Like, there's certain things like that. Like, you need to know what's important. What I'm saying is what is too much? For some of you, it's the thought of rejection. For some of you, it's 5 no's. For some of you, it's 3 months of no's. For some of you, it's, I've worked on this, I've put in the work for 90 days and I don't see fruit of it yet, and so I'm going to quit. You need to know, count the cost. Because what I can predict, if you can tell me what that answer is, I can predict your success. The people who are overnight successes are really never overnight successes. What I can say this is that if you will actually have a strategy in your life and you'll be consistent with it, there's no doubt that you're going to be successful. Like I told that leader that I was talking to earlier today, who thought that accountability was like this great tool that helps people. Yeah, in the short term, having someone who I'm afraid of actually failing and this person is going to keep me from failing. In the short term, that can keep you in the game. In the longer game, I need to have a different mindset to keep me in the game, where I see that the work that I'm putting in, the effort, the consistency of showing up, of doing what I need to do, even the stuff that's hard, even the stuff that I don't really like. Like, I'm an introvert. I hate meeting new people. I don't want to, like, if somebody knocks at the door and I'm not expecting anyone, I don't answer the door. And my wife's like, what is wrong with you? Why don't you go answer the door? And I'm like, because I wasn't expecting anyone. I looked at the camera. I don't know who this person is. So, and I don't want to meet them. Or if the phone rings, if I'm not emotionally prepared, I don't answer the phone. Why? Because I'm an introvert. But what we have to also understand is that if we are limiting who we are in our purpose based on our personality type, you know what? You're limiting your purpose. Is that sometimes your personality type has to submit to what your purpose is. It needs to. What is it that's going to make you relinquish your dream? You need to get real with yourself and count the cost on the front end. And before you actually defeat yourself later on, you can actually do something about it. Like, you know what I can do with any of these things? What we're really looking at is, okay, this is a set of beliefs and attitudes about how we see stuff. And it's predictable of the future. You know what that means? It means I can reframe any of these things. Just as a hint, I can reframe rejection really easily. You know what I can do as well? Is that when it comes to rejection and worrying about getting out there and putting myself out there with my ideal client and everything else, like some coaches don't want to get there like, I'm so worried about being rejected and people saying no and me not being able to help people and all this list of things. Well, actually, that's not what your focus is supposed to be at all. Your focus isn't supposed to be avoiding rejection. You know what your focus is? Your focus has got to be your purpose, that vision. It's about serving people. It's about understanding that if I can focus on what this person really needs, what their pain points are, takes me the focus off of mine. What is their pain point? If I can understand what it is that is keeping them where they're at, the more that I understand and I speak their language, the more it's obvious that this person is going to become a client. You know why? Because my focus is off of me. My focus is completely fixed on what it is that this person actually needs. It's one of those easy ways that you can reframe. Like, reframe. My focus isn't to sit around trying to avoid rejection. My focus is to serve people, live into my purpose. Now, let me understand. Let me make the focus this person that I'm trying to serve, and whatever is keeping them from having what they want in their life, and what is their pain right now in their life. And the more that I can speak to that, the more I can understand it. The day is coming when they're ready, and it only makes sense that they're actually ready to do something about it, and they choose me. It's a no-brainer that they're going to choose you to help them with that. Let me pay the bills really quickly, and then I'm going to look at comments. For those of you who have not gotten trained and certified as a coach, we have a Jumpstart program. And in our Jumpstart program, not only do you get trained and certified as a coach, because that's part of it, what do you get access to? The Life Coach Certification course, which is fully online, on demand. You can set your own schedule, go through your training, earn your certification. We have a live weekend boot camp that is part of that, which is a Friday, Saturday, Sunday, where we bring you through all of the core competencies. We start on Friday night. It's an all-day Saturday, all-day Sunday. It's live via Zoom. You get to interact with a bunch of amazing students, a bunch of amazing aspiring coaches. Some of those relationships you'll be connected for the rest of your life. We have live Q&As at the end of each one of those sessions. If there's anything that's unclear, I answer those things live. At the end of all of that, we have at the end of those things on Saturday night and on the Sunday night, we do live role playing, so you can actually practice being a client, practice being a coach, and you can actually experience it with a group of peers. And what do you learn in all of this? Well, you learn what coaching really is. You walk away with real strong tools and the confidence to actually do this thing. And again, you've got a great group of supportive peers who spend that entire weekend with you. But in our Jumpstart program, it doesn't only include that. What we give you, the Jumpstart program itself, is an A to Z on how to develop your business. Everything from discovering your target market, your niche, how to attract clients, how to sell, how to develop a strategy, a weekly strategy to attract clients and build your business. We supplement all of that with a live weekly group coaching call. The students who are part of Jumpstart connect with one another. We have an online community where they're always cheering one another on, celebrating each other's success. But we also get feedback on anything that you're working on. If you have a website that you've developed, if you have a coaching call that you had with someone and you recorded it and you're like, hey, give me feedback on this. How did it go? And all that. We do all of those things during those calls. We record them. They're posted in the archive on the website within like 24 to 48 hours. So you have access to all that. There's literally hundreds of hours of training that is available at your fingertips in a 90-second enrollment. Also, you get access to Brand Camp. It's 13 and a half hours of everything from how do you develop your marketing messaging, your website, wireframing your website, how do you write an email, how do you write a web page sales page, how do you optimize your website for search engines, all of that stuff. It's 13 and a half hours. It's just on branding. So what we've done is that we understand that if you've got a skill shortage, right? If you've got a confidence shortage when it comes to starting out your business, you've got some how-tos that are missing. And we understand that no one wants to do this thing alone. We've covered all of those bases because we've been those coaches who have started from scratch and became really successful. This program is $97 a month. There's nothing that's even in the realm close to what we're offering. Extraordinary value for $97 a month. That's Starbucks every day. If you only buy a cup of Starbucks and nothing fancy, $3.25 a day with a 3-month minimum commitment. You can cancel anytime after that or stick around with us because it's a really great deal and it's an amazing community. Hey, let me say hello to a few more people who I know popped in here. Let's see. There's Sylvia. Hey, how's it going, Sylvia? Does it say Buffalo? Pooja from Buffalo, New York. Awesome. Cassandra in Louisville. Marcia from Trinidad. And there's Barbara. How's it going? Verletha said, that's me, failure to launch. I hope today was inspiring for you and can and look at the encouragement that's going on from some of our coaches in there. I appreciate that. There's Enos. Hey, Enos. Here's a good one. If you are in fact moving slowly, carry on. But once you hit those chalks, make no mistake. It's a competition out there, a cooperative one, like a potential relay, but don't stop. Thanks for that encouragement for people out there. Jen says, what about a new coach who works for a company and after 1 year wants a raise? Do you use the same questions? I believe so. I believe that those questions can be really compelling and can really help. Maritza is telling me to sing. Another time. Maybe another time. Oh, Oh, man. Hey, thanks for all of the honesty on here. Some of you who are talking about some of your fears and some of those different things that have been holding you back. I hope today was really encouraging for you. Yolanda from Columbia, South Carolina. Tara says, these are amazing questions we can ask our clients to using these. Awesome. Oh, she's talking about a GNR hater. I'm not a GNR hater. My wife was a GNR, like, I don't want to call her a groupie. She would be so mad if I said that. But she was a huge fan and dyed her hair black for a while. She went through that phase when she was a teenager. But anyway, Yolanda said, did you just call me antique? No. I was born in the 70s. Everybody knows I'm going to be 48 this year. So I was buying a instrument that was made during my birth year. I guess that's why I bought it. I don't know. Harvey says, no one likes rejection, but it's important to get it because it means you're putting out numbers. The success is around the corner. Awesome. Bill says, Paul, I always appreciate your lessons. I learn new things and get reminders of important concepts for my clients. Today, you reinforce some of the specific points I plan to share with the group next week. Awesome. Very good. Harvey says, incredible reframing, Paul. Great reminders. Thank you. Tara says, I love the reframing and I love Jumpstart. Thank you. Tara says, I gave up getting my nails done monthly for Jumpstart and it's 100% worth it. I remember when we made major sacrifices in our family, and that was one of those things that went for my wife. And I will say this, that she got very proficient and had beautiful hands that entire time. I never had a steady hand painting nails, and my daughters can all tell you because I've tried on every one of them. I don't know what it is about a brush, but man, that takes some agility and some skill, and I'm just not that. But anyway, Tara said it was really encouraging. Thank you. You were welcome. Awesome. And Cookie says, God bless you, and thank you for keeping us knowledgeable. Thank you. Awesome. Well, awesome. Well, if that was helpful for everybody, do me a huge favor. Like this, share it, comment. That always tells Facebook and YouTube we're doing a good job, and we try to. This link to Jumpstart to get enrolled is inside the description right now. So if you want to be a part of this, it'll take you 90 seconds to get enrolled. You can begin to do this. Don't forget the questions that we're on there. You can always watch this replay. It'll be at this exact link in the future. And hopefully that's going to be really helpful. Go after these things. You know what? These mindsets that we talked about aren't just for you becoming a coach and starting a business. These are mindsets for everything in life. And they're confronting us in a lot of different areas. Listen, that whole fear of rejection and some of those kinds of things that are there that shut us down are not just shutting us down with regard to our careers. They're shutting us down in relationships. They're shutting us down on a lot of different levels in our life. Go after these things. You can do it. You can create new mindsets. You can create new beliefs, and you can have a real path to victory in your life. Listen, appreciate you guys all immensely. Have a great rest of your week and take care.